Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Newspaper Article Lucky Dip, Season 2. Now, I'm not sure if the boys are set on being in here and running about all the time. We're about to find out, aren't we? I also don't know what's in the hat today. And the last episode, along with a tech fail at the end, was really rather morose. There was lots of death in varying ways. So anything can be picked out the hat. If you find that certain events or scenarios can be quite distressing to you, look below, see if any of them are listed, because we don't know what's coming out the hat until we get our options. So we'll go straight into this one. First we have, if I can open it, the old Caledonian Mercury for the 24th of June 1843. We'll see what the Caledonian Mercury has for us today. Okay, so we have a strange cure for madness. The Belgian journals relate the following strange occurrence. A gentleman named B, we don't find out any more than B, a native of Holland, has been for some time confined in a madhouse at Brussels for religious monomania. He one day got loose and climbed up one of the trees with the design, he said, to go straight to heaven. Those below, who saw him climbing up, feared a fall, and the director of the establishment ordered mattresses to be placed under the tree. Before this could be done, he jumped down, came on his feet, and was but little hurt. The shock, strange to say, cured his mental alienation, and a few days since he left the madhouse perfectly well. So he's had some kind of religious delusions that he can make it to heaven just by manual effort, climbing a tree. He's gone up the tree, has waited a while, obviously not very long, because it can't have been a super long time before it was realised that there's a patient up the tree, people are seeing him, and before they've even got the mattresses out, so we're not talking hours and hours here. He's come down and been like, that was an interesting experience, but yeah, I think I'm cured now. I don't believe that I can get to heaven climbing trees anymore. If only mental illness were so easily cured. Nay. Okay, on to the next. It's always good when the first article isn't entirely gruesome, I guess. That's a nice change. So next we have the Fife Herald for the 2nd of November 1848. It's not long after that article. We'll see what they have for us. Okay, alright, so we have fall of a sugar house in Glasgow, 14 lives lost, and this was a story originally reported in the Glasgow Courier. On Monday morning last, shortly after 7 o'clock, a most frightful catastrophe occurred in Glasgow by the falling of the large sugar house belonging to Messrs. Samuel Wilson and Sons, sugar refiners, situated at 71 Alston Street, by which 19 or 20 men were suddenly buried in its ruins, 14 of whom appear to be killed, and 5 are more or less seriously injured. It appears that the men were all at their work early in the morning as usual, pursuing their various avocations in the different flats of the building, without the slightest suspicion of the dreadful calamity which was about to befall them. The whole building seems to have given way without a moment's intimation, as none who were within its walls had time to escape the crash of the falling ruins, which seems to have been as loud as it was sudden, and attracted a number of individuals to the spot. The appearance which the scene presented was of the most appalling description. The whole building, consisting of 6 or 7 stories, was in one mass of ruin, with nothing save the 2 gable walls standing, and these in a very deplorable condition, coupled with the distressing consideration that about 20 human beings lay buried within the heap. Captain Miller, Chief Superintendent, Dr. Easton, and a party of police hastened to the spot, which they reached in little more than 10 minutes after the accident. The crowd which had collected was now considerable, but everyone seemed paralysed, and not a single attempt was made to approach the dangerous ruins, till, urged by Captain Miller, about 50 persons got upon the pile and commenced to clear away the rubbish. The scene then became most exciting and heart-rending. The groans of the injured and the dying were heard in several directions. Every exertion which humanity and skill could suggest to relieve the sufferers was made, and accessions were added every minute to the number of labourers. Between 9 and 10 o'clock some progress was made in clearing away the ruins, and some of the persons still alive were got out, and others communicated with. And here again the heart-rending part of the scene was renewed. By this time numbers of the wives, children, and near relatives of the sufferers began to congregate. Some attracted by reports of the event that had occurred, others unconscious of what had happened, came with the morning repast of a husband or a father, and then for the first time learned of the awful fate which had overtaken them. The cries and wailing became loud and bitter, and as the bodies of those dug from the ruins were brought out, the deep anxiety manifested by mourning relatives to learn the name and fate of the persons, and the lamentations of several groups who had no hope of the safety of those near and dear to them, were most pitiful and distressing in the extreme. Up till the last hour on Monday night we were unable to arrive at any definite information as to the number of men who were in the building when it fell, in consequence of every one who could afford information being busily engaged in trying to recover the bodies, or, as might happen, relieve some sufferer. There is also some difficulty of learning this from the fortunate circumstance that, being Monday morning, many of the men had not then got to their work. This fact also accounts for the larger number, 32, at first named as being under the ruins. From all, however, we can learn, and we believe it will be found pretty near the melancholy reality, there were about 20 men in the building when the occurrence took place, and who shared in the catastrophe. Of these, one was got out so little injured that he was able to walk to his own house in Briggate Street. 4 others were extracted alive, but more or less injured, and after being examined by Dr. Easton were sent off to the infirmary. Around one poor fellow they had to dig for nearly 3 hours before they got him freed from his perilous and painful condition, during which time some wine and other cordials were administered to sustain him. Though much bruised, it is not supposed any of them are dangerously so. 3 dead bodies had been recovered before dusk on Monday night out of the 20 supposed to have been buried, and arrangements were made by Captain Miller for having the operations continued all night without intermission, by as many men as could conveniently work on the spot at once. As to the cause of the falling of the building, by which so much human life has been sacrificed and valuable property destroyed, we have not been able to obtain any information on which we can rely, or think it judicious at this moment to publish. There is no doubt the whole matter will undergo a most rigid investigation by the authorities, and if there has been any culpability on the part of any person, that it shall not go unpunished. It is but right, however, to mention here that a rumour which prevailed in the forepart of the day that the property had been condemned some time ago by the Dean of Guild Court was authoritatively contradicted at the meeting of the Municipal Police Board by the Honourable the Lord Provost. Okay, yeah. There weren't a lot of health and safety regulations in the mid-19th century. The building could very likely have been deserving of condemnation, because a building that's sound isn't just going to suddenly collapse around its occupants. But there weren't checks undertaken with any kind of regularity. There also was only, and I'm not sure of the exact dates, but the police and fire service, had they been formed by this point, would have been in its infancy. It wouldn't have been properly regulated in itself, really. They would have been doing some great work, don't get me wrong, but when accidents like these happened, it was really the citizenry that kind of took up the slack and would be helping to pull these people. So you'd find that most of the people likely getting these men out are going to just be fellow workers, and people that just happen to be passing and volunteers. It's unlikely it was going to have been a regulated body of men or, rescuers who were going to try and relieve these people from under the rubble. Alston Street, I believe, is the street that Central Station was built over. I think it opened in 1897, so that was a good 50 years after this incident happened that the street itself was just given up. I have a map that still has Alston Street, and it was actually published in the year that Central Station was opened, so it must be one of the very last maps of Glasgow with that street listed. So, yeah, I mean, these things happened. If it wasn't a building just collapsing on people, it was a fire that people couldn't escape from, again, due to lack of regulations in health and safety. Where I am just now used to be a music hall. These apartments were built on top of where an old music hall used to be, and it went on fire. And it was people from the factory next door that's now, it's retained its aspect. It still looks as it did, but it's been converted into flats. And it was people from that factory that had to come in and help get everybody out from the dance hall that was on fire, the music hall. So, there you go. So we'll have a last one, because that was a wee bit long. The boys seem to have settled down, so that's nice. So our last article is going to be from the Aberdeen Evening Express for the 13th of June 1893. We'll see what they have. Okay, so it seems like we might be ending on something of a whimsical note, which is nice, better than how it went last time. We have an odd marriage. Many years ago, a gentleman whose first wife was dead arose one morning with the whimsical resolution of marrying any one of his maidservants who should first appear on his ringing the bell. He rang, and the chambermaid came up, to whom he abruptly said, "Get yourself ready, and go with me to be married." The girl, treating the affair as a joke, refused and withdrew. He rang the bell a second time, when the cook appeared, to whom he said, "Well, my girl, I intend this day to make you my wife. Go and dress yourself in the best you have, and order the coach to be got ready immediately." She took him at his word, dressed herself, and on coming downstairs was met by the chambermaid, who asked her, "Where are you going?" "Abroad," she said. "I have my master's leave." She had scarce uttered the words when her master came down and took her by the hand to the carriage which drove to St. Benet's Church in London, where they were married. The union, it is said, was singularly happy. I'm with the chambermaid on that, Ian. If I'm coming into work and my employer's like, "You know what, I'ma marry you today." No, I don't think so. I think that's super creepy. And I'm with her on that. I think that's ridiculous. But the cook took her chance and apparently ended up in a happy marriage with her former master. And no doubt he got himself an excellent cook as a wife. So, well, there you go. So that does us for today. I may see you for the next one. I'm keeping an eye on the boys. Take care. See you later.